welcome everyone to the very first PODIM Day Satellite Event 2021. Thank you for tuning in. So happy to have you all here. I'm sure we are all excited to hear what our guests have to say about the challenges and opportunities in 2021. I'll quickly introduce a few things and then we'll move on the juicy stuff, all right? So why are we here today? Because our team just couldn't wait for the PODIM conference to begin, so we decided to host a series of satellite warm-up events. I think getting in touch with all of you and having interesting discussion is a great way to kick off the PODIM season. Our next satellite event is already scheduled for 2nd of March, and we'll send you emails and know you all about it in shortly. So I also want to quickly introduce PODIM in case some of you're one of a million people that doesn't know about it, right? So PODIM is a startup and tech conference which prioritize high-quality networking and meaningful meetings. That is why there's a place for only just 1,000 attendees and 150 chosen startups. If you are a startup, you can apply on our website until 15th of March. We have already received over 300 applications and are looking forward for another great event. This year, PODIM is going to be a hybrid conference for the very first time. What does this mean? So we'll combine the best of both digital and physical worlds. PODIM will be happening in location in Maribor, Slovenia, and also online. You'll be able to attend it from everywhere, no matter the restrictions. So save the date. It will happen from 17th to 19th of May. Of course, PODIM wouldn't be possible without our great partners, and one of them is Phil Rouge Capital. They've been PODIM partner for years, and I'd like to invite Julian from Phil Rouge Capital, co-founder and managing director, to say a few words about the PODIM conference. Julian, welcome.
Hi, thanks,
Hi.
Urban.
Hi.
So,
Julian, a month ago we talked about you, and you mentioned that PODIM is like Tinder for investors and startups. So tell me, how many successful matches did you get out of PODIM in previous years?
I think we are getting close to 10. So that's a pretty good result, and some of them are doing really well. So we are very pleased with PODIM, and that's why we participate every year. We love it. We think it's the best event in the region and much beyond. Great,
and thank you for being with us. So what are your expectations about this year?
Meet more founders. I mean, that's why we love PODIM, because the gathering is really good, and the founders scene and startup scene in the region is really evolving fast, and that's where we make the first contacts, and hopefully we'll develop a growing relationship with many more founders. That's our primary goal.
Great. So in person versus online event, what do you prefer? I know the answer in advance, but how did you survive this year without events and rumbling around the meeting rooms?
I mean, look, you got to do what you got to do, right? So, this year was a bit special. I think everything has been said about this bloody virus, and we can't wait for things to go back to normal. I like human contact. I think a lot more can be done, can be seen, can be understood. But hey, we had to deal with it online, and in the end, it worked fine too. It's not ideal, but we made the most of it, and we can't wait for it to be over.
Great, yeah. This is two of us that can't wait to have already in-person events, and keeping fingers crossed that the situation will allow us to get as many people as possible in Maribor. So looking forward to have you in Maribor, and also later in the chat today. Thank you very much. And now Dejan is also with us. Dejan Jovicevic, the moderator from Der Brutkasten. Dejan, hi, welcome Vienna studio.
Hi, Vienna calling, so to say. Good evening. Great to be on board tonight.
Great, Dan. The Broadcasting is also our long-term partner We are super happy to have you on board every year. So tell me, how is Vienna? You have brand new studio, I see.
Yes, we moved to a different studio. We have a brand new LED wall. Can, so to say, put the PODIM in perspective that it deserves. So I'm very happy. So we're still playing with it, testing it. Exciting times for us. Last year we did almost 120 virtual and hybrid events as a technical provider, end to end. So it was a good year, thank God for us, and we are, so to say, stepping up the speed.
Great. So Dan, basically the same question also for you. So in person versus hybrid or versus online. So what do you prefer?
You know, we did. Seriously speaking, we did since April. We are a media company for those who don't know us, like TechCrunch for Austria and Germany. And we were strong in broadcasting our editorial content, very multi-channel, podcast, video, and so on and so forth. So we had the skills for broadcasting, and we used that opportunity to develop our skills further in the field of virtual events. And we did 120 virtual events for many, many partners. We did the first one in Austria, and then out of that one, a lot of references. So we executed a lot of these events. And I think the majority of our partners tell us that knowing the assets of a digital implementation of a conference, they cannot really imagine solely analog event anymore. So it's all going to this hybrid version where we're learning experiences. Some of them they'll be solely analog. If it's very local, if it's very, so to say, community driven in a local communities, obviously you don't need a digital implementation. But anything international and anything where you need data out of your event, I can't really see, and this is what the feedback of our clients is, I can't really see going back to the solely analog world. So I think it's going to be a combination, you know. It gives you so many new opportunities where you have the digital implementation and the analog network. So I'm quite excited to see how you guys are going to, or we together, if we can support you again, implement the PODIM in May this year. It's going to be an exciting conference.
You know, we are doing like the startup way. So we first jump and then try to figure it how we'll do it, right? So we'll figure it out. But we have the best partners, and also glad to have you on board. And we'll definitely make it work, and we'll make it work like hell, right? So it will be great, right? And I only have one, you know, really a great, a favor to ask for you, right? Watch your back, please. Watch your back. Because last year, you know, we did an amazing job. Diane did like, the whole setup of the student, and unfortunately, he could not, participate on the event as such because he had like an accident. So, Dan, please watch your back. So I hope you are working out.
Super active. It was a super active time with you guys. Last time we were pioneering this field of virtual conferences, and I think it was a great event. And while I was, trying to coordinate something on my telephone, I was lifting something in the studio, trying to help with the scenography, and I landed in the hospital. This year, my fitness, I think, is much better. So don't worry.
All right. Great. Thank you. And again, great to have you all on board, also the guests in the backstage, also all the startups that are waiting in the Zoom. So please post your questions in the chat. I'll try to follow them and pass them to Dan as much as I can. And now let's start the discussions. But before we go to the discussion, there's only one thing left before we begin. We have our brand new PODIM teaser video. So enjoy it and enjoy our first PODIM DX satellite event. Great to have you, and let's start.
2020 was wild. It showed us that change is indeed the only constant. And it showed that you should change with it. We can only influence what we do, how we do it, the way we see things. It seemed like 2020 would prevent the PODIM we all love from taking place. Yet we didn't give up on it. And you didn't give up on us. An obstacle became an opportunity. PODIM moved to the digital realm. It became borderless. Nothing could stop us from sharing knowledge, making connections, and getting closer to our goals. 2020 forced us to discover PODIM's future. In 2021, we want to see you again. We want to meet you again. And we want to remain borderless. That's why PODIM is becoming a hybrid conference. Be one of the 1,000 attendees. Make meaningful connections. Get practical feedback and grab business-changing opportunities. Join us and let PODIM change you and your business. And remember, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. See you at PODIM DX.
So very warm welcome again from my side. And let's start with our panel talk. Really good speakers tonight. And I'm looking forward to discussing topics such as key learnings from 2020 that are relevant to the founders, your expectations from 2021, what's up to come, what are the hot topics, what are you going to be dealing with. And we have three very distinguished guests tonight. Carlos Eduardo Espinal, speed investor and partner at Seedcamp. Carlos, welcome, and thank you for taking your time.
Hello.
Hello. Then we have Depali Nangya, venture partner at Speed Invest, and she invests in female founders only. Depali, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
And last but not least, Julien Costori, managing partner from Fil Rouge Capital. Julien, welcome again.
Hi guys, hi everyone. Glad to be here tonight with you.
So we're going to be discussing about your key learnings from 2020 and what's next this year. Are you active or not? So maybe Depali, I will start with you. I think it's a cute question, so to say. How would you describe the last year, the Corona year, 2020?
I would say for me, it was a lot about community, and I feel that we all kind of missed that offline interaction and fled to these online communities that would give us, it was like a replacement to what we were missing in real life, and made me realize how little I need really to be happy. But I would also say that, as a working mother, I would say, it was a lot about survival and making sure that my kids, since my kids were at home and I was working full time, a lot of the times I was trying to fight fires. So I would say lots of introspection, lots of reflection. And to be honest, I think a lot of us came out a lot stronger from it.
Also, your startups, was there also like survival mode there? What happened in your portfolio?
Yeah, so obviously a few startups, one of them actually was selling to corporates, decided to pivot. It was very tough, then went really shut down marketing and decided to go the M&A route. Another one, which was, these are the ones that are slightly more advanced in my portfolio. The second one was did really well because it was like the COVID tailwind. It's a pensions consolidation platform, and a lot of people were doing admin at home. So, they saw a huge growth in assets under management. They're looking to go public this year. And some of the smaller ones, just focused on product build. And some focused, their marketing efforts on customer retention rather than customer acquisition, unless they were in sectors such as digital health or e-commerce. But I would say a lot of them were still early. So really focused on product build.
Mm-hmm. Carlos, what about your keyword for 2020?
I mean, it was a very interesting year. I think it's not even a year that you can use and ask the question in a consistent way. Like, it's almost like a tale of three stories. It's like the period right after most countries locked down. Then there's a period where a lot of the economic support structures that America and the UK put into motion, which changed global markets. Then there's the next phase, which is the reaction of the public markets to that, and then the implication that has on the venture markets. And when you end 2020, if you look at it from a software point of view, it's fundamentally a very different story. So it's not even a very simple question that has to do with like an overarching theme for 2020. It's so many different variants of 2020, so many flavors to it.
Julien, from your perspective?
Are we allowed to swear here or maybe not?
I think it's after 7 p.m. So feel free.
Okay. All right. Fucked up would be my definition of that year. I hated every bit of it. First of all, I had to see my wife way more than I wanted to see her, and she probably would say the same. Then I would say that from a business standpoint, I didn't like it. Although from our portfolio standpoint, we were quite lucky. We had two what I would call COVID investments to make. And actually, those two companies did much better than they ever thought they would. So they are in a pretty good position now. But everything was slow. Every opportunity for a B2B business, a B2B startup to get a contract, everything was delayed. We don't know what's going to happen, and let's see when COVID finishes. Let's see when the first vaccines are coming, and there was less M&A. It was more difficult to raise. So, I would summarize by saying that, personally, we didn't have any major crisis at all, but it was slow. It was slow and too slow, and I personally hate when it's slow.
Okay, what about the investment activity? I remember, let's say March, April 2020, a lot of investors were telling me, well, we're careful. We're waiting to see whether there's going to be possible to have investment rounds. We have to, so to say, see that our portfolio has enough money. So we're not investing in new companies, but we're investing in the current portfolio, or at least saving money in case some of the portfolio companies might need our help. And I think after 3-4 months, then the investor scene realized that remote investment rounds were possible, were functioning. And then many of them told me we're investing more than before Corona. So how was your investment activity, if you have it, for example, in the March, in the early lockdown, and then after it?
Well, I can give you rough numbers. I prepared the numbers. They are for the whole year. So unfortunately, of course, March is three months down the road. But I can give you the numbers. We made 84 investments. We deployed 16 million. And we did 26 follow-ons. So you see, on our side, we pushed the throttle flat out. We just slowed down a little bit in the HoReCa sector. So whatever had to do with traveling and restaurants and bar activities, we kind of put on the back burner a bit. But for the rest, for us, COVID, not COVID, I think that the digital revolution is on the way, and a couple of months of stalemate status, we didn't think that the impact would be very big, so we just decided to go at it and continue investing.
Dipali?
I made 9 investments last year, and I would say that of the 9, I did 8 online. So I had met one founder physically right before COVID hit, and that was my first investment. And then after that, and then I followed on in one of my own companies because obviously they were doing really well. But everything else I did on Zoom. But I'm an angel investor, so I write much smaller checks. But I thought it was fine. In fact, I'm hoping that I invested only in women. I thought the market was very buoyant, to be honest. I saw deals getting done really quickly, and later stage seed funds coming in and doing all these pre-seed deals and pumping money. So I felt quite positive about it.
Would you say it was a good year for female founders? Did the activity did they get boosted, or was it a setback when it comes to female entrepreneurship in general?
I mean, if you look at all the research, right, all the research says that it wasn't that great a year. But, I'm talking from personal experience. I also launched last year a community of angel investors called Alma Angels, which grew from 0 to 220 or 225 at this point. And we started sharing deals which are run completely by female founders. We had invested £500,000 in 6 months to December, and I looked at the January figures last week, and we had invested £500,000 in January. So, for me, that is phenomenal. There was a deal that came in last week. We had an hour call, and I had £450,000 worth of commitments in 15 minutes. And these are all female investors writing checks. So, I feel quite positive. Obviously, I think we need more women investors. We need more successful exits, for this category of investment, more investment to happen in this category. And I also feel that men can change, can move the needle, because they're such a big part of the ecosystem. And the more they invest in women, the more investment there will be. So at Alma, we have, I think, 70% women, but 30% men, because I think men can significantly shift that.
You joined Speed Invest a couple of months ago, and I remember the founder of Speed Invest, Oliver Hohle, told me in one of the interviews, maybe a few months ago as well, that they compared their deal flow with another Austrian, let's say, accelerator or small community, female founders. They're called female founders. And they realized that obviously Speed Invest is the strongest venture capital firm, not only in Austria, but in some verticals, even in Europe, let's say fintechs. So they're super strong in Austria. And we all assumed that they would have, 99% of all pitch decks on their desk. But when they compared this to a female founders organization, they realized that it was only 15% of the pitch decks that female founders get also Speed Invest got. Was that one of the reasons why you joined Speed Invest? And is this topic becoming super business relevant, not only, let's say, politically relevant?
I joined Speed Invest because I thought they were a great fund and they believed in my mission and vision. So they almost created this opportunity for me to join them. They already had established efforts. I'm not sure if you know, but they are a big sponsor to Female Founders Global. So that's how Female Founders Global started. It came out of Speed Invest, and it was spun out, and Nina and Co came out of there. I definitely think it's a very relevant topic. My role there is to make sure that we're seeing more female founders. So the number of companies that we're seeing that are female founded are increasing. My role there is also to go through some of the due diligence, processes and sit in due diligence meetings with them and ultimately be able to fund more female founders. I think, diversity is good, diversity of thought, diversity of leadership, diversity of any kind, but it's hard because if you see a fund, I think Europe anyways has fewer female founders. I talk to funds in Germany that have fewer female founders, but I think overall, it's very important to a lot of funds. I'm talking to more and more funds who tell me, can you send us female founders? So I think it's a very, very, not just, I think it's an underinvested category. And for me, it seems like an arbitrage opportunity. That we need to invest into. So it's as simple as that. Of course, it's political, but I don't think you should do it for a political reason.
Carlos, Depari just mentioned that from out of 9 investments, 8 of them were conducted by Zoom. Do you think that this, let's call it mobility of capital in this remote setting, is something that will stay and remain? Was that a game changer also for the venture capital industry?
I mean, I hope it will stay. I hope we come out with a hybrid model, because I also feel for women, I've gained many hours just by working from home and being able to manage my family life around Zoom, right? So I'm hoping that this stays. I think talent acquisition is also great because you can employ someone in a remote location as long as you can make it work. I'm hoping it'll stay in the venture capital industry, but time is to tell.
Carlos, what's your experience on that? What's your impression?
Well, first of all, I think if you look back before COVID happened, I think there was a lot of challenges with people having to try to fly to where the capital is. And although it was an inconvenience for everyone to switch to online pitching and it ruined some of the dynamics, the best thing it ever did was it democratized talking to capital. Like it totally broke down any barriers. And one of the complaints that I always heard about, we're a very big believer in, companies coming out of Eastern Europe. And one of the best things there was, you don't have to fly. You don't have to take that 3, 5, 6 hour flight. And it's been an amazing transformation. It's been, we've done 48 investments in Eastern Europe, and, in Slovenia, we've done 4, and in Estonia, 12, Romania, 7. And it just means that you can have those meetings without getting on a plane, and I think that what'll happen post-COVID is that'll be the new normal. Now, it doesn't mean that in-person meeting won't be as effective. It will be. You can't change that. Like, you can't change the fact that after you're done with a meeting, you can go for a beer. You can do, you can't pretend that. And I think somebody was, it was somebody else in a different context talking about how, like, in the future, post-COVID, if you're a salesman and you flying to the customer's site closes the deal over your competitor will stop doing online calls to close deals. And it's like the Cold War, right? Like, you will all revert back to whatever's the most level of closure. And so I think what we'll end up with is a hybrid world.
And just to add to that, I was going to say that I was recruited online. I've never met any of the Speed Invest team yet, physically.
Wow.
So it all happened on Zoom. So.
But, many investors from Sand Hill Road, from Silicon Valley, used to say that they only invest in teams which are somehow in the radius of 30 to 60 car rides minutes from them. Is that going to change? Is this, so to say, history?
I mean, is the question about how Silicon Valley investors are going to behave, or are you asking about investors as a whole?
Well, you can answer to both, in particular for Silicon Valley investors, but is that also like an industry mindset that will change in general?
I think we're living in a world that is changing so fast that if you don't adapt, you're probably going to be left behind. I think if you look at the expansion of Asian and American capital into Europe is partially because there's an awareness that some of the best companies in the world are being built in Europe. And as a consequence, you need to get closer to where the companies are, not the companies getting closer to where you are.
Yeah, that's a real strong statement. Maybe let's move on to the 2021. Are you changing your perspective in terms of technology that you invest in? Are you seeing some new markets opening? The whole area of new home, remote work, maybe also education, health. Are these, so to say, boosted industries in the corona, your new targets? What is the strategic outline for 2021? Whoever wants to start. Julien.
I mean, look, I'm a believer. I'm a big believer of the digital revolution. So, I mean, what you've just talked about, I consider that as micro trend. I'm not saying they are not important. I'm just saying that, yes, you're going to stay more home and all that. That's good. But I mean, the basic of our revolution, the e-commerce, the marketplace, the logistics, fintech, all this is yet to be revolutionized. So I'm still bullish on what we do. It doesn't mean that a couple of sectors will do better. We have a very successful investment in online alcohol online selling, as we discussed before we went online. So there are some things that will try, but I think everything that is currently being revolutionized will remain. I'm not picking up any sector in particular. I think there are a couple of new technologies that will come and that we shouldn't be overlooked. I think 5G is going to be a big enabler. It doesn't exist yet; it's just started. But low latency, high bandwidth kind of connectivity is probably going to revolutionize further a couple of things we do. We don't know yet what's going to be the famous killer app in 5G, but I've seen a couple of things that could be very interesting. I'm personally very bullish on e-gaming, and it probably has to do with the trend you've just mentioned, which is staying more home, staying more behind the screen. I'm very excited about e-gaming in general. But I would say in general, I think that what we've seen, and I've read reports that this COVID period has accelerated the digitalization of people by a factor of 7 years. And I just see that as a tremendous enabler for whatever we pick as an investment strategy. That is digital.
Which means also that's the best time for startups ever. Would you see that way?
I've never seen it. I've never seen a better time to be a a founder, frankly. I mean, if you want to go down to the region itself, I mean, the Central Eastern Europe as ecosystem has evolved significantly. You have the first unicorns left, right, and center. I mean, I'd say yes. I mean, if you're from here, capital is coming. People are looking at this region. Talent is here. I would say yes. It's never been a better time to be a founder.
That means that we can expect you to be as active in the deal room of PODIM as in the previous years.
Oh, believe me, I want to make my money back because you're expensive.
Yeah, perfect. What about you, Carlos and Ali? What are your perspectives for this year? Are you refocusing? Do you have a new investment strategy, or is it as broad as it used to be in terms of digitalization is boosting on all levels and you keep the focus as it was?
I obviously am looking at deals from a speed invest perspective, but I'll talk about my own angel things that I'm looking at first. I did some future of work last year. I did some gaming last year, things that I thought were interesting at the point to take advantage of the COVID tailwind. This year, I'm looking at, of course, mental health, continue to look at mental health, but something, maybe more interesting because that continues to be a problem. I will look at longevity tech, which I'm very interested in. I will look at climate tech, and I will look at age tech. But of course, I look at so many deals that I get every single day. But these are some themes that I want to dive into. And I also want to dive into Germany. So I've been spending quite a bit of time meeting funds and founders in Germany, female founders, which is not a great market for female founders. So I'm hoping to be able to do something there.
Carlos, I'm not sure what kind of which investments are disclosed, but I think you were focusing on this remote work or remote, not only remote work, remote in general, startups already before Corona. Can you tell us some of your portfolio companies that were super boosted during the Corona, and what does that mean for an investment activity? Are you going to refocus or even more focus on this field?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could tell you that we saw remote work as an enabler for post-COVID reality. I mean, nobody would have guessed, right? But sometimes it's about being at the right place at the right time. And I think we made a few investments that made sense to us and that we were very happy to be part of. And it was largely having to do with the faith and the excitement we had around the relationship with the founders we backed. And one of those stories, as you probably know, is Hopin. And, that's been great. But, that's one element of the future of what we're going to see going forward. I think what we've realized is that there's certain things that are changing in the world that are going to continue to change no matter what we do. Like we need to have more energy independence from oil and gas. We need more sustainable food sources. We need movement from reactive health that is overwhelming health systems to a more proactive health system where people are being able to diagnose themselves on the edge. We're trying to work on how to, with all this government support funding, it's put in question whether or not we need a different form of store of value. There's increase. I think Julian talked a little bit about this. It's whether or not we have fully broken down all the walls in fintech services to be able to offer the best products to people around the world, whether it be insurance or property management or something like that. And so I think, you look at even open source is moving away the sort of early initial momentum that some of the established software players have. So I think it's about constantly revisiting these ideas every 5 years and thinking, okay, well, the world's very different today. Which are the areas that need most disruption right now?
I spoke to GitHub today in terms of open source. They saw an increase of 40% in their activities around coding open source in the communities. And in average, on one project, 42 nationalities are working together. So is the collaboration in the tech scene on the global scale going to increase in terms of open source? Are these interesting topics to look at in the future? What do you think, Carlos?
Well, so open source is a funny one because it's always been there, right? Like open source has been there since a very early stages of the internet, and the early stories with MySQL and everything have always been there. And a large part of what makes open source successful is the community, right? And if you look at open source, it's actually not the right label in many cases, because there's everything from open source consumer software that you can use, like Audacity, to like edit, podcasts, whatnot, to one of our recent investments called Blobber, which is trying to replace Airtable, in how they're approaching a very centralized approach, and that lets you have like more of an on-prem Airtable approach. So like there's a broad spectrum, but I think what's happening is that you're getting a lot more emphasis on the spirit of what makes open source amazing, which is obviously community sharing, and then of course the benefits of open source are in transparency into what's being built, which then enables customization for different organizations and their security needs. And then that triggers a whole ecosystem around that. So, it is a movement. It's always had steam. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's been, put into more motion because of COVID. It was always there. I think, with people being home and everything, it probably has helped some extent, but It's always been there.
Maybe just to all three of you, the question we talked about startups and digitalization being boosted in the Corona crisis. What about your own business models, venture capital? Are these good years for venture capital firms for your business models as well? How are you guys doing, so to say? Julien.
Okay, so how are we doing? I mean, in terms of returns, I think these are normal days. The returns are great, just because there is this digital revolution and we are at the heart of it. So I would say COVID, not COVID. I don't think, if I look at the two funds we have under management, that the valuation has been significantly impacted. Yes, fair enough. On a couple of investments, they've been boosted by COVID, but overall, I think I couldn't see a lot of impact. It's a great time to be in this industry in general. I have one concern, and you touched upon it a few moments ago, is the fact that there are billions of public money being poured into nobody really knows what to do. Nobody really knows what. And that's a little bit of a concern. I'm a bit of a liberal, and maybe we're becoming too political here, but I mean, public money is great, but I think that if there is too much money being poured in sectors, then you create bubbles. I mean, we see a couple of bubbles at the moment in some markets, and I am just a little bit concerned. You are asking about the timing. I'm just a little bit concerned to see this 100 million here, 500 there, 1 billion there, being poured into our sector without a lot of consultation, just because people, a few idiots in a nicely coated presidential palace have decided that it would be cool to work on innovation. And that's a bit of a concern to me, because it distorts the market, not only for us, but also for founders. It creates all kind of issues, and in the end, it creates a long-term problem that actually didn't solve anything. My views.
In April, I remember last year when we were starting to discuss, or March, starting to discuss the support of public money support. I think one of the British authors said, "Don't bail out startups." Would that be the way to go for you?
I mean, I think I would say bail out the company that deserve it, wherever they come from. I'm certainly not saying there shouldn't be any bailouts. There have been tons of bailouts. My real worry is who's going to pay for it. But we would probably need another conference just for that. But yes, bail them out, but do it with consultation, not to create another bubble.
Mm-hmm. What about Speed Invest and Seedcamp? How are you guys doing? Is your business model also being boosted due to developments?
I can't really. Sorry, Carlos, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, I wasn't saying anything. I mean, I can jump in to answer the question if you want, but I think when it comes to the business model of venture, I think venture capital requires it's it's an ecosystem that is highly linked with public markets and how capital flows are happening around the world. And I think Julian brought up the point about sort of assisted capital from governmental initiatives, whether it be quantitative easing or other mechanisms that can have an impact on how cash flows into private equity. And I'm using the word private equity as loosely to include venture capital, which then pushes the amount of money flowing into an area that has a certain amount of stability when it comes to valuations and round sizes. And because people are moving away from certain overinflated assets, it pushes the entire thing up, which then creates a change in the dynamic that investors have. So it brings up issues like, are companies raising the right amount of money versus the right valuation? Those are all questions we're probably not going to be able to ever answer in this panel. But to bring it back to your original question is, does that change the business model? Of course it does, right? It means that new funds or new investment funds have to put in more money to attain the same level of ownership than before, because as valuations goes up. And so what does that mean? And what does it mean to have like an exit of 200 million versus 500 million? You know, only 10 years ago, the average exit in the Western European was only 50 million. Now, if you're an investor, you can't really aim for that and raise money. So what does that mean for all the different funds? I mean, are we going to have a brand new type of fund? Yes, there's tons of funds that are being popped up. There's new hacks to it. There's like single GP funds, right? That's one hack. Then there is like SPACs and SPVs. And now we're totally going to geek out on these things if you want to. But all these innovations are happening, but they're all happening as a reaction to all this macro change. And the question is, what will be stable? And I don't think we've gotten to the point yet where we can say fundamentally venture capital has been rewritten because of this. And now this is the new stable format. And I don't think that new stable format will displace the old format. I think it'll coexist.
Super interesting. I think your investors forum took place last week. How did it go? Any changes to the previous years?
No, it was about continuing the same strategy, same trajectory, different sectors that we looked at. We looked at food and we looked at sustainable technologies more, and of course software. But that's probably the only thing. Like some of the topics we talked about earlier in terms of trends was probably the biggest change.
Okay, Tepali, what about Speed Invest? How are you guys doing? Is it a good year for venture capital for Speed Invest in particular?
Can't comment on Speed Invest again because I've only been there for a month. As far as I know, our portfolio is doing well. But, from what I see at pre-seed, I have seen so much capital come in the last year. I feel, and maybe it's just me, but I see pre-seed deals being done at seed valuations, but with pre-seed metrics, because and larger round sizes. So I feel like pre-seed is the new seed. Seed is, it's just everything is moved forward. And I just hope that these companies that I've raised will be able to raise their next set of rounds, because they've raised much larger rounds. And at seed, the funds are going to say, show us the metrics, because now seed looks like Series A. And I feel like there's still an economic fallout yet to come. The fundamental market has not changed. And so I'm hoping that, I'm not sure whether they'll be able to show the metrics, is what I'm saying, in 12 to 18 months' time. So I just feel there is some sort of a bubble, but that's just me looking at early stage.
Some of you said that democratization of approaching venture capital took place due to Corona, because a founder can pitch to an investor, I don't know, on the other side of the world. Do you have any tips or any recommendations, any advice to the founders how to pitch in this virtual environment where you don't have the opportunity to drink a beer with somebody or to approach somebody in a restaurant or a bar? Do you have any best practice or any advice that you can give to founders? Any one of you?
Look, we're all people at the end of the day. I think that it's easy to forget that, when you would meet in person, you would probably talk about people things like, who are you? What are you doing? Like before you get into the presentation. And I think that trying to make that connection, maybe doing a little bit of research about the people and kind of what they're interested in, what they've done, it can just help build that bridge. And, it's not rocket science. It's just human science.
Okay. So it's no particular, so to say, different approaches than in real life.
Well, the thing is, if you're asking the question, like, remember post-COVID, everybody was playing around with virtual backgrounds for like all of about 2 weeks and before it got for everyone. Like, if that's what you're asking, don't do that. But if what you're asking is like a special trick, no, there isn't a special trick. It's just connect. Just connect with the person on the other side of the phone.
I also think that you should be reaching out cold, because people just are more open to taking inbound at this point. I don't know what has changed it, but I invested in a founder that reached out cold. I've reached out cold to several people. Probably reached out cold to Carlos last. I can't remember now, but. I think you should be able to just reach out without thinking about it too much, because people just are making time for you. Maybe they're saving time because of, I don't know, working longer days and saving time on commute. So, but like Carlos said, building a relationship is key. I think that is number one.
Julien?
I mean, look, I think, I like what Carlos said about the human nature of things. I always try to actually start my discussion with something very personal. Yesterday I had a first screening, and I talked, for 50% of the interview, I talked football with the guy I was interviewing. And actually, it's quite interesting how much I learned about this founder by just opening on some human things rather than business things. So I think what we lose over a beer, we try to recreate over Zoom. That's not ideal. I mean, your opening question, I commented that it's not ideal, but we make the most of it. And I believe sometimes we are successful also at finding the human nature of people behind it.
Okay, we have two questions from the audience. Let's start with the first one. What is the reasonable amount for some minimum investment in the first seed phase, starting a global project and targeting millions of users? It's hard to answer like this with no more info, I know, but it would mean to hear some minimum below which you should not go, or it's not good to go to stay professional. I have few versions and levels of development, so I try to figure it out where to start, or to give options ABC. I'm not sure whether you understand the question, but at the beginning was, what is the reasonable amount for some minimum investment in the first seed phase when starting a global project and targeting millions of users?
You know what we could do that could be fun? We could ask the person who asked it to turn on their camera and turn on.
Yeah, let's do that. Urban, could you help us with that? So whoever asked this question, join the discussion. I hope we are not destroying the layout for the audience. So we have it. Please just tell us your name, switch on your camera, and explain the question.
Hello, my name is Andrea Mladin. My startup project is Pet Travel Advisor. And my question is, I actually have a website that's some kind of trip advisor for pet-friendly objects, properties, and all the places that accept pets. So we are solving, actually, I made a standard where you have a categorization, like you have stars, you have paths for the properties. So I'm trying to find the best connection with the pet-friendly hosts, with pet owners, and all other guests to be actually socially acceptable. So to shorten it, as we don't have now to travel and everything, I started with Horeca, and I find out that it is not where my money is. Actually, who need this solution are pet owners. So I have a prototype of my application for the mobile, the map, and I need money now for development. I call it my MVP2, but actually I believe this is the first version. I'm totally sure, and I researched it on many ways. I'm actually for long in pet industry, so I'm long. So I don't know where to start, because my full application needs a lot of money. But what is the minimum to not be silly?
Okay, so don't ask for 300 euros, I guess. But what is the minimum not to be silly?
I mean,
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you need Carlos because you need an accelerator like Carlos. You need Seed Camp. But in the UK, it's what you call the Friends and Family and Fools round, really, which is around 150K, where people, which you might use to build like a really working prototype or minimal, do some user testing and research. But the other thing is to also look at, accelerators and incubators like Seed Camp.
Mm-hmm. And Fil Rouge Capital.
Okay, so Urban, you can maybe help with a intro between them two.
I think I think there's a couple of other questions kind of in the same theme as Andreas. So I'm probably going to take a stab at it because I think that the world of venture, has evolved quite a bit, and Seed Camp and Speed Invest and Julianne, and we're all comfortable with the idea of an early stage company. There was another question about pre-seed projects and like how come people don't want to invest in pre-seed projects. The reality is you have three people whose specialty and whose job is to look at pre-seed companies on this panel, right? So the question, if I rephrase it, is how come I'm having to ask this question about the minimum amount? Let me flip it to you and say, what is the amount you want to achieve market traction of some sort, right? Like flip it. It's not the least amount to get something done. It's what is the ideal amount to do what you need to do and to show somebody that you're doing stuff, right? Now, I would probably start doing the math on having a team. So it's at the pre-seed stage, and this answers one of the questions, at the pre-seed stage, the thing that at Seed Camp we judge the most is the team. So for example, if Andrea, you had somebody who could potentially be a co-founder, and at the moment you're outsourcing the development to somebody else, I would probably see what it costs to be able to convince that person to be full-time with you. And then that's potentially what you're fundraising under the narrative that that's your whole team. Because the problem is that if you just use a little bit of money to build a prototype, I know that personally I would be less inclined to have an incomplete team at the pre-seed level, because we like to look at complete teams in that sense.
I have 5 people around me, and actually for me to start this, I really want, and I really believe in it, and I don't think that this is not a good moment. I really think that people are more connected with pets than ever, and people are so willing to travel. So that all has sense, but the money, what I need for now, I am in business. I have 3 companies, so I am that mindset that I'm always trying to spend less. So I'm not like, give me 100 it's the easiest to take a lot of money, but then you need to give something back. So I went out with my pitch in front of not friends and families and not fools, but that's a kind of partners. And they told me that I asked for 50,000. That is silly. But that is actually not for the full project. That is something that I need to start and to build up the community in Europe. So not the whole world, but that is the next level.
Okay, so then I would take a step back and think about how much money you need for the next 12 to 18 months. That's how much you should raise for, because then you can go back and say, this is what I need the money for, and these are the metrics I'm going to get to before my next raise.
Great, thank you.
Great advice. Thank you so much. We have another question, and likewise, I'd like to ask you to switch on your camera and your microphone and join us, because I'm not sure that I understand the question. So who was the person asking the second question? Urban, can you help us? I can start reading the question. I have one question for the beginning phase from our startups. They're asking mostly something, what is the right procedure to get a who was that? Do we have the person asking this question?
It was me, Aleš, from Technology Park, Ljubljana.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a lot of daily work with startups, and they have a similar question like most of them. And the question is, they have some kind of MVP already done, and they don't have a track record. And the investors on the many of them, they don't want to invest in this phase. So the question is what they should do. What is the really important thing for the investors, that they will trust this kind of startups, that they will trust this kind of ideas, even if they don't have track yet, and they cannot reach the track because they don't have a support in money. And this is some kind of circle then. Because I have a really good startups in our background, but there is a problem for to get the pre-seed investment for the develop.
So I guess the question is, what does it take for them to become investable?
Yeah.
In the first phase. Okay.
Yeah.
Any advice from our experts? Julien?
I mean, look, I think Deepali answered pretty nicely. I mean, that's one way to look at it. I have the feeling that it depends a little bit on the region where you operate from. But I would always recommend people to come up with something with, between 10 and 50,000 euro. And this something can vary, but I mean, a proof of concept or an MVP or some user feedback, and that shouldn't cost more than 50,000 euro. I mean, these days, the cost of failure is very low, and I believe that it's about 50K, and 50K for me is a very interesting metric with company. If they can achieve something, then there is room for the next round. I think that's the number I keep talking about. I like it, and in our region, I think it makes a lot of sense.
And sometimes you can also look for grant funding. There are grants out there, again, depending on the type of business they're trying to build. At least in the UK, I know we have grants, so that might be something to explore.
Mm-hmm. Would there be any red flag for you as investors when it comes to the early phase? What founders should not do in order to be able to follow up on a bigger scale with venture capital, for example? One or two red flags that you can give as an advice. Whoever wants. Carlos, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, red flags for us. I mean, I can go through a whole list, right? But one red flag is whenever the relationship between the co-founders is a very unstable one or a very short-term one. So, for example, the perfect example of this is two people that met in a hackathon about a month ago, and therefore they haven't overcome some of the key relational challenges that you need to overcome to be able to work together in the long term. So that's one red flag. Another one is the cap table. The founders don't own enough because they've taken too much dilution. And it's a subjective thing. What is too much dilution? But I mean, you'd be surprised some of the things that you see in terms of like ownership stakes. So that's another example of something that doesn't work. Another one, and I told you this, Andrea, it's like for us, because of the nature of the kind of amount of money that we invest, we want to make sure that there's a team that can execute internally without having to rely on external outsourcing. And I'm not saying that that's what you said, but I'm saying as my example is any team where it's outsourced teams, I really struggle with it because it's very hard to scale quickly with outsourced teams. So those are three examples of red flags.
I've got just one, if you allow me, because it's a very dear one to my heart. Is the lack of humility. I've had recent experience with a couple of founders playing hard to catch. As soon as they tried that, I mean, I literally hung up the phone or the Zoom. Okay. So I absolutely hate that.
Okay, that's great advice. But would you check the level of humility and the let's call it that way, with founders? Is that something that you check early on in your discussions?
Yeah, first. That's okay. When we talked about the human factor, you can very quickly say about the person, and immediately as you dive into the company, if you start hearing stupid numbers that Sequoia is about to write them the 10 million check and that we should react quickly, and this kind of what I call when my bullshitometer goes into red, I just hang up.
Okay. Thank you for the honesty.
With women, they're always so humble. In fact, I'm always like, talk it up. So,
Yes.
I always have the opposite problem. So.
That's true, actually. That's true. That's a big issue. Yes, yes. We have another question, and please feel free to join with your camera and your microphone. How are investors looking at the brick and mortar retail space and technology for this space? Investable or pass? Whoever asked this question, you feel free to join us.
Hey.
And
hi. It's a surprise that first of all I would have put my makeup on to look a little bit more acceptable for the camera. Hello, everybody.
Don't worry.
Question is mine.
Next time we're gonna do it on Clubhouse. Don't worry.
My question is, especially when COVID hit, we actually have a retail technology for brick and mortar retailers, and when COVID hit, brick and mortar, everybody closed, but e-commerce was growing even faster. Even before that, that was the case. But now we went faster. Even knowing that brick and mortar is the bigger player, they're like 10 times bigger than e-commerce. My question is, and we saw this, is how is the situation looking right now? Are technology for brick and mortar investable, or e-commerce is more likely to be investable? That's kind of my question.
Who wants?
Investors.
How do you feel about pitching what it is? Because I think you're dying to tell us what you're working on. I think ultimately that's what you're dying to do. So tell us.
Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, not really. We had a dilemma of turning into e-commerce. That's why I'm asking. But I think we're gonna stick with brick and mortar. It's basically, if I can pitch it in 3 words, it's Cupic it's Tinder for local shopping. It allows you to quickly locate stores and shops and get notification on stores you prefer, and convert your loyalty cards into digital assets. It's free for local shops, but then an opportunity with shopping malls showed up, and I think we're going that way.
So
but I was just figuring out the dilemma.
Interesting thing you said in that statement was that you were thinking about going e-commerce, but then you decided to stay with what you were doing. Tell us why you were so excited to stay with what you were doing, even after you considered e-commerce.
Because when everything went down, we were thinking about pivoting to e-commerce, and then a shopping mall called.
And said what?
So basically the shopping mall was like, yeah, guys, I think you can help us with customer engagement. And engaging local customers and communicating with our local customers. But before that, we were like, what are we going to do now? Like, we had 1,000 local shops, and then we never considered actually shopping malls. And when they called, we kind of pivoted towards building the technology for shopping malls.
So Zoran, I'll riff with you on this one a little bit. I think that we all know that retail isn't going away, but what might change is the nature of retail stores. And I like the fact that you had a mall reach out to you, because what it might be implying is that even though there's going to be retail spaces, that they're not going to be one static leaseholder of that property for 30 years. It's going to be a bunch of pop-up stores. Or the dynamic that real estate is going to have with commerce will be that it'll be a lot more dynamically fluid. And so if you pitch your company from the point of view of you're the discovery mechanism for these fluid retail locations, in 2050, every single retail space will never be fixed in time for more than 3 months. The company you're building is the one that allows you to have a table of contents, a menu system to see what is cool that's happening. And if that's what you're capturing, you're at the beginning of the curve. You're the hop-in of on-prem retail. And that's the exciting thing about our industry, is that that's kind of the way you need to help us understand it as investors, because then it goes from being, it was negatively affected by COVID, to COVID has made this an interesting futuristic view of how the world's going to relate to retail locally.
Yeah, makes sense. We just needed to hear it from investors, because otherwise it's just hypotheses that me and my co-founder are talking about.
Well, I'm still going shopping and I can't wait to go on my next holiday if it helps at all. I can't wait to go to a shop either. So sorry, guys.
And feel free to write to PODIM guys, and PODIM guys, you can forward this email to me. I think I'll connect you to somebody from Germany that could be interested in your product.
That would be perfect. By the way, I think I'm coming to Slovenia to check you out, guys.
Okay.
And maybe for you and Andrea, just a general thought, like with the comment that Julian made and Dipali made, especially about like how the market is at the moment, I think you have to be really thinking like massively and globally. So, I'll ask you both, like, what does pet travel insurance look like on a global massive basis? What does retail e-commerce software look like? What has to fundamentally change about the way that we engage with technology for online or in-person retail for this to be $1 billion business? And if you can convince us of that, that's when it's really easy to unlock money.
Makes sense. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So we'll take a final question. Boris Haravan, please join us with your camera and your audio. Are you with us?
Hi. Yes, I am.
Hi. Your question. You have a product. It's a tool toy for kids. So tell us about it, and what is your question to our investors?
Yes, this tool toy, it's called the Magnet Tiles. Already, I made prototype. I already sold several hundred. These toys, people are very satisfied. It's very useful for kids to develop a mind and to stay away a bit from computer games. Parents are complaining that them kids are all the time searching for phone and touching screen, and they're not actually developing them tactile skills. So this toy is very visual. So it's magnets in 3 shapes, rhombus and 2 different triangles in 4 colors, and combining the colors and the shapes, you can just create almost infinite possibilities with shapes, 3-dimensional, and kids do recognize these shapes. If it is I don't know, mathematical, it's kind of mathematical toy. So today is I'm from Serbia, first of all. I mean, for people who don't know. And it's very difficult. We're still not part of Europe Union family, and we have many difficulties to enter Amazon and this worldwide shop. Yes. And I need some, I'm asking if there is someone, I'm looking for partner actually who can recognize the potential of this. It's also business, right? But it's not only business, it's also helpful for
yeah, we have the product. I have 2 kids and we have these magnet tiles. I'm not sure whether these are yours, but it's
I have them. I also have them at home.
But so what's is this something new, or is it a coincidence that maybe Dipali and myself both have your product at home, which probably is not the case?
It's new. I checked. I surfed the internet. There is different similar things, but there is no exactly. There is no something like that. The possibility of this, it's different from what exists now in the market.
Okay. Any advice from our investors? I'm not sure whether this is a VC case, but maybe to give some advice how to start the rollout. Who wants? Julien.
I mean, wholesaler, sorry.
You can see.
Go ahead, Dipali.
I was going to say, if Amazon and direct to consumer are not a possibility, then you can look at, I guess, wholesalers outside of Serbia, as well as, I mean, I'm just thinking how else you would distribute, because I bought my magnet tires on Amazon. I buy most of my toys on Amazon. So, it's a tough place to be if you can't. I would only think that it's a wholesale agreements with toy shops and other distribution outlets, right? Mm. If you can't ship directly, can you ship directly? I mean, build a direct consumer brand.
We have problem here when we are delivering. If I'm delivering now to Amazon some amount, 200, 500 toys, I have to write exact price per each, how much I'm going to receive from each unit that I'm selling. It's very confusing and very difficult to make it legal. I want to make it legal, not to have headaches.
I think what would really suit you well. Last year, I got to know some very, very good incubators in Belgrade, in Novi Sad, in Serbia. I think they might be very, very good support for you to just help you with the first steps of this entrepreneurship. I don't know, investors, would these local incubating programs be suitable for such founders?
Oh yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there is some way to for partnership with someone who might the toy can be produced in Serbia, but it can actually be distributed, yes, from Europe Union, not from Serbia, because it's very difficult, and this has potential. It's not prototype, it's not something that is not finished. I even made a test in SGS. It's famous company worldwide that does the testings for materials, for everything. So they does test this as well in France. They test it safe for kids. It's safe. I have a legal CE mark. I did all this research and everything is ready. I mean, product is innovative. It's quality. It has all.
I think if you connect, I think if you connect, Boris, with maybe local founders in Serbia to help you, I think many of Serbian startups will have experiences how to go about these first steps. I think that would be the way to go. Local infrastructure, maybe also the Chamber of Commerce. It seems if you have a product, then they will certainly find ways to support you in these first steps.
Okay,
but thank you.
Not first, but okay. Thank you. I'll think about it.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
To wrap up, dear investors, dear speakers, maybe to leave us with some final notes, final thought. What founders should be focused on this year? What do you expect from this year? Maybe to wrap up this discussion with your final remarks. Whoever wants to start, Dipali.
I was going to say, I'm still investing this year out of the Atomic Angel program for this year and next year. I was invited back as an alum. So I will be investing in 4 to 5 female founders again this year. So I would love to get pitch decks and ideas, and looking forward to it.
Great. Carlos?
I mean, I think for me, this has been such a transformational last 12 months. It's been in many ways challenging, but in many ways super inspiring to see how quickly people are willing to adopt new ways of doing things and changing things and new products and trying new things. Like the biggest probably food for thought that I would leave founders is that, there's never been an easier time to get money than now. And there's never been a more willing audience to try your products than now. And there's never been an easier time to hire teams globally than now, no matter where you're based. And so with all that, I mean, really, you really have a very good opportunity of succeeding if you give it a proper go.
Perfect. Julien.
I mean, listen, you make me pass after Dipali and Carlos. I have nothing more, nothing smarter to say. I mean, seriously, they've just said everything I had to say. So thanks,
Perfect. There's nothing more to add. Urban.
I will add that I'm also looking at deals for Speed Invest. We're a pre-seed and seed investor, and very, very focused on female founders this year. So hoping to do a lot more deals, if not in an angel capacity, but through Speed Invest.
Okay, my turn too. Yes, we are looking at deals. We have 2 accelerators program a year. They are the best in the world, no doubt. Much better than Seed Camp. So come to us. No, seriously, we were super bullish about the future.
I mean, I wonder, Carlos, whether he would dare to say that if we would be sitting in person in studio. What do you think? This is one of the effects of virtual communication. People get brave.
Don't worry, I'm brave in front and in live too. Don't worry.
No, we just like to tease you.
I think
Thank you.
What I love about the stage that we invest in is that it takes a village to raise a startup. And at our stage, it's about collaborating with other investors. And I would embrace Julien to work with him. So, it's all the love, man, all the love.
Fantastic. On that note, Urban, any final remarks from your side from Maribor Studio?
Yeah, also repeat the words from Julien and Dipali. We are looking for new startups. So apply till 15th of March. We have 1 batch per year. So apply for PODIM, and you'll meet beside these wonderful people here, also other investors, and get beside maybe the money and investments, also a great advice and a lot of new knowledge. So looking really much forward for all great inspiring founders to meet them on PODIM, virtually or in person. And once again, thank you, Carlos, Dipali, and Julien, for taking part of this first satellite event, and also looking forward to have you in Maribor on PODIM again, and and thank you for being such a great part of the ecosystem and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. It's a very fantastic and inspiring community in PODIM. I'm looking forward to it. Good night. Ciao.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.